Good evening, everyone. I'm not sure who's my Zoom master tonight, but am I starting right now?
Yes, sis. Dwayne McKay is going to be on. So yes, you're starting now.
I'm starting right now.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone who have decided to stop by our Zoom platform tonight to talk and to listen. And we hope and believe that everyone will leave this meeting with some information that will be very useful in their personal financial matters going forward. So we are Christian Fellowship finance team. We have also, this month is April is National Financial Literacy Month. And in keeping with the tenor of the month, we we believe that it was important for us to actually develop some financial workshops and brings pertinent information to members of our community and especially, well, not especially, but also for our youth, our young people. Um, we will begin with prayer and scripture reading to ask God's blessing on this evening's proceedings. I am Denise Garrett. I am the finance director for Christian Fellowship Church, but I'm only the director. We have several members. I have several members of my committee, along with our treasurer and business manager, our pastor, our first elder, our stewardship director. And so I'm talking about probably about 18 to 20 people that are part of the Christian Fellowship Finance Department. Um, we started this yesterday with our first workshop on retirement fund issues and solutions. So for the folks who missed it, it was pretty exciting, lots of great information. And we are discussing actually turning these workshops into blogs and hopefully eventually a podcast. Um, the good thing about blogs is that after the workshop is over, if someone is interested in still getting the information, um, we'll put it up. We'll have a blog on our Christian Fellowship website. We'll put it up so you can just go to the Christian Fellowship website, look for the blogs, and all the workshops that we have done and all the topics that we have reviewed and presented to you you'll be able to access it through the blog. So this is I know I'm giving some work to the communications team, but we have a fantastic communications team, so they're up to it. Tonight, we are going to explore saving and investing for youth, for students, for youth, for anybody who believes that they are young, including me. Um, However, the information that we will present on that topic is actually appropriate and good for everyone, no matter what time, where you are in your life cycle, whether you are young or in the middle or towards the end, the information is appropriate for everyone because saving and investing touches the life of everyone, the lives of people in general. So on behalf of the finance team of Christian Fellowship, We are going to bring you some information that you can use in your personal financial decision making, setting your financial goals. We'll kind of give you the roadmap. Now, I have been doing this for a while, and usually when I do these workshops, I do them in person. And one of the things I usually like to do in the beginning is to reassure my audience that the information we share with you is actual, it's accurate, it's very factual, and it's the information you'll use whether you go to a financial a certified financial planner, a CFP. We as a church, we have many talented, experienced, and very educated people at our Christian Fellowship Church. And so when we come together with all this information as a service to the community, we believe that it's incumbent upon us to actually disseminate the information to the members of the community. We have professional people in the finance department. For those of you who were here last night, we have accountants, we have a CPA who's a professor at Medgar Evers. We have a couple of people who have finance degrees. You have me. I'm an old banker, 25 years. I've been teaching financial literacy for the last decade. And I also am certified to teach to both adults and youth. So I'm certified to teach financial literacy by the the Department of Consumer Affairs Office of Financial Empowerment. I'm certified by them. I'm also certified by the CEE, the Council for Economic Education, to teach financial concepts to youth. I'm also certified by the FDIC, and I'm certified also by, there's another one. I should have reviewed this. There's one more, can't remember. But so I say all of this to say that the information you get from us, it's professional information, it's valid information, and it's information that you should use when you are thinking or beginning to build your financial portfolio. At this time, I don't know if Sister Chung Parchment is on the line to do our opening prayer. Sister Parchment, are you there? Okay, probably not. So I will do it. And so I ask you to just take a couple of minutes to ask God to actually bless the proceedings before we begin. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity to be together in this on this Zoom platform this evening. We have a unique opportunity, Lord, due to the coronavirus pandemic. We are able to get together still. It may not be in person, but we are getting together to help each other through the hardships that we are all experiencing at the same time. We ask you to bless these proceedings, Lord, and give us receptive minds and receptive ears so we're able to implement the information that you have allowed us to share. So our members of our community and whoever is joining us tonight will be able to have less stress and less fear in addressing their personal financial issues. We thank you for your faithfulness, Lord. Please be with us in this Zoom platform, I pray, in Jesus' name, amen. And Brother Edmundo McKenzie will actually read a short passage for us, Matthew 25:14-23. Brother McKenzie.
Okay, good evening, family. Matthew 25, chapter 14 to
23.
Okay. For the kingdom of heaven is as a man traveling into the far country, who called his own servants and delivered unto them his goods. And unto one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, to every man according to his several ability, and straightway took his journey. Then he that had received the 5 talents went and traded with the same, and made them other 5 talents. And likewise he that had received 2, he also gained other 2. But he that had received 1 went and digged in the earth, and hid his Lord's money. After a long time the Lord of those servants cometh and reckoneth with them. And so he that had received 5 talents came and brought other 5 talents, saying, Lord, thou deliverest unto me 5 talents. Behold, I have gained beside them 5 talents more. His Lord said unto him, Well done, thou good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of thy Lord. He also that had received 2 talents came and said, Lord, thou deliverest unto me 2 talents. Behold, I have gained 2 other talents besides them. His Lord said unto him, Well done, good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of thy Lord. May God have a rich blessing to the readings. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Brother Mackenzie. And so the parable of the talents is appropriate reading because it highlights the fact that God actually encourages us to invest. And so this passage was very appropriate. The parable of the talents, and I'm reading from a manual that we use for when we are actually building our financial workshops. It's called Faith and Finance, Financial Planning with a Faith Factor. And under the investments, saving and investment chapter, there's a beautiful piece of reading here as it pertains to the scripture that Brother Mackenzie just read, Matthew 25, 14 to 30. It's actually a great piece of reading. So for those of you who haven't seen it in a while, take a look at it. The parable of the talents in Matthew 25, 14 to 30 shows us that we each are entrusted by God with different financial assets, gifts, and opportunities. And we will be held accountable to God for how we invested them in this life. We can prepare for the Master's return by enhancing the growth of his kingdom and wisely investing his assets. Our long-term savings and investments are a way of using our years of plenty to prepare for the lean years in later life. And the most reasonable use of our savings and investments is to protect and provide for our families, to develop working capital and contingency funds to enable us to give generously and to become financially independent and free to serve God. So investing is an obligation. However, it is an obligation, but how you invest and what the preliminaries are before investments, those are crucial. And this is what we intend to cover this evening in a very short while. Just as an aside, our brother Edmundo Mackenzie, who just read the scripture reading, was very instrumental in helping me focus to actually put this presentation tonight together. He's very involved with the youth, and he had an impromptu focus group of young people, and he asked them what's on their heart in terms of personal finance. And they, the majority of them said saving and investing. They mentioned also home ownership, and they mentioned, I believe, managing student loans and a couple of others. So I'm hoping, I prayed, and I'm hoping that we have a sizable number of youth this evening on this Zoom platform. So let me share my screen with you so we can get started with the excitement. I make it too large. Hold on. There you go. Yes. Hello, everyone, again. Let the fun begin. April is Financial Literacy Month. Oh, one more thing. Last night, what we did was ask you to hold your questions until we complete the presentation, because we have set aside some time at the end for Q&A, for questions and answers. We also have some members of our team who would be monitoring the chat to actually document the questions and the comments as they come in. So we'll be able to take them in order. So we'll give you time for question and answers. So don't hesitate if you have a question or you want to put your hand up. Some of our members will be documenting that, so you are not, you'll be able to get a chance to get your questions answered. Okay, Christian Fellowship Church presents Saving and Investing for Youth. And it's also known as Making Your Money Work for You. So to begin, I don't know, my text is going outside my, hold on, I think I made it too big. Oh, come on. Okay, maybe all right, there you go. No, there are some fundamentals to saving and investing. And as we know, no one is born knowing how to save or to invest. Every successful investor must start with the basics. And I have advocated for years that financial basics should be taught in school. At the very least, it should start in high school, but mandatory in college. They have not taken me up on that yet. Although some of the colleges, including Brooklyn College, have personal finance as an elective. It's not yet mandatory, so they are at least paying attention. As youth, you may think that saving and investing are things you don't need to consider right now, but there's a cost to waiting. That's the idea behind time value of money. Saving even just a little can add up over time and help pay for your short and long-term goals. And that's actually a quote from the US Securities and Exchange Commission, better known as the SEC. And now we come down to mom. Money don't grow on trees. I use that line on all my kids. And of course I was right. But it can grow when you save and invest wisely. Now, I mentioned the US Securities and Exchange Commission. A lot of our information, a lot of the places I go to get updated information for you on many financial topics. Besides the SEC, I also go to the CFPB, which is the Consumer Financial Protection Board. I also go to the FTC, which is the Federal Trade Commission. I go a lot to the IRS.gov because the IRS.gov is a treasure trove of financial information. And for people with small businesses, I usually get a lot of my information from the SBA, the Small Business Administration. So the information we're bringing to you is straight from the horse's mouth, as mom would say. So let's begin. Set the 7 rules for improving your financial life. Get a good education. Work long, hard, and smart. Learn money management skills. You must. Spend less than you could spend. That means living within your means and sometimes, way below. Save early and save often. Invest in common stocks for the long term. We'll go into that later on. And gather information before making financial decisions. It's not good to make decisions based on, what someone else wants you to do, but after you've done your due diligence. Then implement the 3 keys to financial success. And the 3 keys to starting your financial journey is making a financial plan. And we're going to teach you, we're going to help you we're going to give you a formula to actually successfully make a financial plan. And always the budget. Every financial topic that we will cover, that we have covered and will cover in the future, budget is going to come in somewhere, because the budget is what helps you to know whether or not you have money to invest. The budget will let you know if your expenses are outpacing your income. The budget is going to help you to know if you need to get another job that pays more, or if you need to take on overtime, or if you need to turn your hobbies into money. The budget will tell you all of this. So the budget is crucial. And we have, over the years, we have taught several workshops at Christian Fellowship on personal budgeting. We can do it again. So if this is something that you would like us to do in the future, just let us know. Start saving and investing as soon as you've paid off or paid down your debts. Now, debts would be a barrier to savings. If you have a lot of debts, especially debts with high interest rates, those suck the life out of your whatever money you think you have. If you are paying high interest rate debts, it'll be very hard to save and almost impossible to invest. So you have to manage your debts very, very well, attack them aggressively. Usually the best option, the best strategy is to pay down or pay off the debts with the highest interest rates first, because the highest interest rates are the ones with the highest debt service. So if your debt service is high, it's going to be almost impossible and excruciatingly difficult to save, to build an emergency savings, or to invest. And I'll have a question for you later on about that, between saving and investing. But anyway, making your financial plan, however, you have to answer some basic questions. And those are the basic questions. What are the things I want to save or invest for? Those are your financial goals. What's my goal? Why do I want to save? Why do I want to invest? And you have to have a timeline. When you have a timeline, it helps you to stay focused and to see if you are heading in the right direction towards the goal that you set for yourself, the financial goal. Also, to how much do you need to meet those goals? You have to know how much money you need to have to meet those financial goals. And how much do you earn and how much do you keep? And that again is the budget. The B word is coming up. Those are your needs versus your wants. Your needs, you have no control over. Well, when I say no control over, needs are things like food, shelter, clothing, heat. For those of you who did sociology, Maslow's hierarchy of needs would help you to understand it also better. But, well, not better, but we all know that we have needs and then we have wants. No woman in this world need a $500 bag, regardless of how fabulous it is, or snakeskin belts that cost $200. I'm not picking on the women. The men also spend some crazy money on motorcycles and stuff. But anyway, next question. What's the difference between saving and investing? And we're going to talk about safety and risk when we're talking about that. What choices do you have to make to achieve your goals? And it's called opportunity cost, because sometimes you have to give up some things so you could get to those financial goals that you set for yourself. And so we have a model for you. It's called the SMART model for effective goal setting. And S would mean specific. You have to be specific about what you're trying to achieve. So instead of saying, I want to save some money, you should actually say something like, I want to save $1,000 this year. So you see how you're specific there, right? $1,000. Also to M, measurable. You must be able to easily evaluate whether you are making progress towards your goal. So making the plan and measuring how you're getting there. Like for instance, if you want to save $1,000 per year, one of the things you should do is break it down into small chunks. Figure out how much would I have to save per month. And for those of us who get paid every 2 weeks, you may want to take it down even more minutely to figure out how much do I have to save from each paycheck to actually get to that financial goal of $1,000 this year. And the next one is the A, that's the achievable. Know what steps you should take to reach your goal. So if you're gonna save $1,000 this year and you have worked out how much you'll need to save in a month to get there, you also have to know that when you get that number for a monthly, how much you have to save a month, it must be money that you are able to generate yourself. So if you have to save, I think it's $83 per month to save $1,000 a year, I think. You have to be sure that you can do that on a monthly basis so you could reach your goal. So after 6 months, you should be able to have a certain amount, and that will help you to know whether or not you're on the right track or you are actually falling short. R, realistic. Your plan must be possible. It must be possible to execute. It must be you should easily be able to execute the plan using tools that are available to you. So when you budget and you realize you don't have the money you make right now doesn't allow you to save that amount per month to get to that goal of $1,000, you may want to think about, what else can I do? Could I work more overtime? Could I do some gig work? I mentioned before, probably turn your hobbies into a money-making venture. You have to make sure that your goal is realistic. So you look at all of these things. And lastly, your timeline. You have to set a time for achieving the goal. So when you set a time, it helps you to stay focused. So after 6 months or 9 months, you should be able to tell whether or not you'll meet that goal that you set for yourself to do in 1 year, whether it's 1 year or by Christmas or by age 30. But you have to, if you follow this SMART model of goal setting, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, timely, it'll help you to stay on course. And what it'll do for you also, when you evaluate the goal in the halfway point, and I always recommend check it like every 3 months, every quarter. There's like 4 quarters in the year. Every 3 months, see if you're on course. If you're not, you may have to go back to the drawing board and work some other plan that's more realistic to what you originally planned. So it's a living thing based on your monitoring to get to that goal. So here we start. We're looking at savings versus investing. So savings is money you set aside for short term. Short term is 1 year or less for your short term needs. Savings are usually placed in the safest products that allow you access, which is also called liquidity, allow you access to the money at any time. So those would be your regular run-of-the-mill savings accounts, your checking accounts, your CDs. They also used to be called, for those older, those like me, used to also be called time deposits. And those are your places for keeping savings relatively safe and have given you access to it when you need. These are usually insured by the FDIC, which is the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, or if it's a mainstream bank. If it's a credit union, their insurance is from the National Credit Union Administration for Credit Unions, okay, NCUA. So when you save money, it's always advisable to keep those in safe places, because that would most likely be your emergency funds, possibly funds for paying for tuition for your children, or for those of you who are paying child support, or things of that nature. Things that can, that money that you would need if you have some kind of emergency or some unexpected need come across. You don't want to have to wait to, liquidate stocks and bonds and all of that stuff. So your savings should be in places where it's accessible and it's relatively safe, covered by FDIC or NCUA. Now, the FDIC insurance can cover up to $250,000 per depositor per bank. And let me just go here a little bit, because there's some misinformation around here. The $250,000 is per depositor per bank. So if you have $250,000 in Citibank in one account, and you open another account for, let's say, $80,000 in the same Citibank, you're only going to be covered up to $250,000. So that other account with the $80,000, that will not be covered, because you are only one person and you can only be covered up to $250,000 per bank. What you can do is take that $80,000 and put it in TD Bank. And now TD Bank has to cover you for a maximum of $250,000. So you might end, if you have a lot of money, you might end up having, 12 accounts in 12 different banks or 30 different banks. I mean, I have worked with organizations that had to, keep their money in, there's one of them I'm working with now, in 15 different banks, just so they can get the money covered by FDIC. However, for the benefit of security and easy access, your money has a low growth rate due to the lower interest rate. Now, that's the thing with money that's FDIC insured. They tend to pay lower interest rates because they're secure. So you get less in terms of interest rates. So the growth rate is not that great, but you won't lose your money. After paying off debts and other high interest rate credit cards, smart investors set aside enough money in a savings account to cover an emergency, and your emergency savings should cover at least 6 to 12 months of living expenses. And the only way you'll know how much that should look like is if you're budgeting. And so when you're budgeting, you have a more accurate sense of what you need to live your life on a monthly basis. And then you build either 6 to 12 months. Now that's conservative. The 6 to 12 months is conservative, because when we had the last recession, the last big one with the mortgage meltdown, we found out that people were unemployed for 12 to 18 months at least, some of them up to 2 years. So you can't have too much emergency savings is the message. But at the very least, try to have at least 6 to 12 months of living expenses. And coronavirus pandemic have also showed us, those of us who did not adhere to the emergency savings, we have been suffering from almost the first month of the pandemic. I have had clients who, after not working for a month or two, couldn't pay rent. Thankfully, there are places like Christian Fellowship that always hand out food several days a week. There are a few around the city. So some people had to discover those places. So praise God for the churches and the community services department. We have a fabulous one. Thank you, Sister G. Right, enough money in savings account to cover an emergency, 6 to 12 months of living expenses like unemployment or a sudden illness. Many people may put some money in savings, but they also consider investing to earn more over a long period of time. So after you have funded your emergency savings and you've paid down or paid off your high interest rate debts, then you have primed yourself to start thinking about investing. Now, all investments are risky, all of them. There are just some that are riskier than others, but all investments carry risk. And before we close this, we'll show you which ones are have the highest risks and which ones have the lowest risks. So investing, when you invest, you have a greater chance of losing your money than when you save. Money invested in securities, in mutual funds, stocks, bonds, real estate, commodities like gold and silver, and other similar investments usually are not federally insured. They are not covered by FDIC. And you can lose your principal. Your principal is the money that you invest. Your initial money that you use for the investment, that's your principal. However, you have the opportunity to earn more money in those investments, right? It's risky, but that's where you could actually see some real growth in your investments. And you have to be able to understand your risk. What is your risk tolerance? Research have shown that men take the greatest risks when it comes to investments. They make a lot of money sometimes, but sometimes they lose it all. The greater the risk you take with your investment, the higher the potential rate of return, the ROI, the return on investment. Unfortunately, with more risk, it is more likely that you will lose your money. So know your risk tolerance. We should have some conversations about risk tolerance. Different people have different tolerance level for risk. You have to know what yours is. So what we're gonna do here now is review the different types of risk. So there's financial risk. And that is the risk that the business or government that you have invested in will not be able to return your money, which is, again, your principal. That's financial risk, or even pay you the rate of return that they promised. Insured accounts in banks and credit unions are insured by the FDIC. We went over that, currently up to $250,000 per institution. So they carry no financial risk. And this is why you put your savings, which is your emergency funds, your children's tuition, child support, stuff of that nature. You put it in places that carry no financial risk, so you won't lose it. And even if the bank will belly up, the insurance, the FDIC insurance, will cover you up to $250,000 in that bank. As long as you don't have more than 250, you shouldn't lose anything. Then there's market risk. And market risk is the risk that the price of an investment will go down. Again, see, you're bumping up on the risk in the very early, because when you make an investment, you doing it after you have reviewed and studied the company and the stocks. But there's no guarantee, because the business cycle is peaks and valleys. So it goes up and it goes down. So you have to do enough research and know enough about the companies that you're about to invest in, so you could be relatively secure that even if they have a downturn, it's probably not going to be big, and they should be able to recover quickly. But no one have this, there's no crystal ball to let you know when a company is going to have a downturn and how deep and how long it's going to be. So that's why the research is very, very important before you invest. When company earnings fall below what investors have expected, the stock price may fall because the prices of stocks, bonds, and mutual funds are determined by supply and demand, hence the fluctuations in price. So some of you probably too young to remember the tech bubble at the end of the mid-90s. Y'all are probably definitely too young. But there was a time when people made hundreds of millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars buying tech stocks. And when everybody was nice and comfortable, the bottom fell out and people lost oodles. I mean, they were like draining money. And so no one saw it coming. And so you always have to keep in the back of your mind that every investment carries risk. Then you have the liquidity risk, and that's your ability to convert your money into cash without penalties or undue restrictions. So checking and savings accounts, very accessible. You have no liquidity risks there. But stocks listed on the stock exchange also, they're very liquid. You can buy or sell them at any time, but at a less favorable price. So you have the liquidity in the sense that you won't be penalized if you trade them. So they're also considered liquid, but you're gonna have to take whatever price that the market is offering when you want to liquidate. Real estate and collectibles are not very liquid because time is needed to find a seller or a buyer. So there's you see the instruments, the financial instruments that are very liquid and the ones that are not. Because if you need money right away, let's say within the next 2 weeks or the next 30 days, you may not be able to liquidate real estate or collectibles that fast. So there's the difference. And then we have inflation risk. Inflation is a general upward movement in the price of goods and services. You remember when the pandemic was raging and we couldn't find toilet paper and wipes, Clorox wipes and all of that? That was inflation right in front of you. So people ended up paying on Amazon. They were buying the wipes for like and hand sanitizer for like I don't know, $20, $30. Some things that we paid like $2 for. So that was inflation in action right there. People invest money today to have more spending money in the future, but inflation can decrease the value of the investment. So if you invest today and inflation happened to show itself during that time, what you could have purchased with the money before you invested it, once inflation get a hold of it, it usually reduces the value of the investment. Sorry, I'm still getting over some upper respiratory infection. I didn't have COVID. When you save or invest, you're deferring your spending until a later time. However, if prices rise over that time, your money will not go as far as it would have gone earlier. And that's what inflation does. It takes a bite out of the investment. Fraud risk, it's everywhere. Actually, right now, I just got a letter from the Department of Labor that somebody applied for unemployment in my name. So there's a fraud going on right here in the Garrett House. And fraud risk, some investments are misrepresented. Therefore, it is important to investigate before you invest. Criminals often make up facts that turn out to be false. Well, yeah, they're criminals. Most investment fraud occurs in securities and saving schemes that do not involve banks, credit unions, or brokerage firms. And there's a good reason for that. Those are highly regulated. So the schemes and scams would be in places that your investments are not secured. So here you go. Let's look at how investments are ranked. Investments are ranked according to their risks and their rewards. The highest risk, those would be speculative stock and real estate, stocks and real estate. Those could, there's all kinds of stuff out there. And so if you don't do your homework, you could end up getting involved in some very risky ventures with very little knowledge. And when things go south, you may find that what you actually purchased was not what it was touted to be, and you might lose all or most of your investment. So again, there's a need to actually do your homework. Then there's your moderate risk, that'd be individual stocks and stock mutual funds. Mutual funds are quite interesting. Hopefully we'll have time to go into that in a little bit with some depth. And low risk is your money market mutual funds, insured CDs, which are the ones in the banks, savings accounts, and US savings bonds. US savings bonds are good instruments also, especially if you want to save for long term. And quick story, my mother actually bought some savings bonds for one of my nieces. And I found them recently after the flood, and they are 32 and 33 years old. And though that $200 bond that she purchased for her at $100 32 years ago is now worth about $500. It's a long time, but that's the power of long-term investing. Also, while you're doing your homework, or to start doing your homework on investments, you have to know and understand financial terms and lingo. So you need to understand the APR, annual percentage rate. You need to understand what's assets, capital gains. There's liquid assets, and there's tangible assets and intangible assets. Capital gain, compound interest, diversification, dividends, inflation, interest, liability and debt, principal, purchasing power, risk tolerance, security. It's always good to understand what those terms mean, and that's just a few. There's a lot. So know your financial terms, understand what they mean. If you need help understanding or getting some explanation, like I said before, there are a lot of qualified people at Christian Fellowship with great experience and qualifications behind them. So don't go into an investment situation not understanding what it is they're talking about. You need to know what the pitfalls are. Differences between stocks and bonds. Stocks are when the company makes a profit or is perceived as having strong potential, its stock may go up in value and pay you dividends. The risk is that the company may do poorly and you'll lose a portion of all of your principal. So when you buy stocks, you actually buy a little piece of the company. So when you invest in stocks, since you're also now part owner of the company because you bought their stocks. Because when you buy stocks, you're investing in the company. When you buy stocks, that's your way of funding the company. So do your due diligence, get your information. Don't just buy stocks because somebody tells you that stock is hot. By the time they tell you the stock is hot, it probably is already starting to go down. So that's stocks. Bonds, however, is the opposite. Bonds are where, well, let me read this. The company promises to return money plus interest. The risk is if the company goes bankrupt, your money may be lost. But if there's money left over, bondholders will be paid before stockholders. So companies issue bonds to raise money. So if New York State wants to build some schools, they might issue bonds. They might issue municipal bonds or some kind of bond to raise money. So the bond is saying, the bond is kind of like an IOU. So the city, when the city sells you a bond, the city is saying, I owe you X amount at this rate at that time. That's what bonds are. So again, do your homework. Finally, money can work for you, but you'll have to work to make it grow as much as possible based on your risk tolerance. So investigate before you invest. A successful investor learns a lot before making investment choices. Be suspicious of promises of quick profits. That's always your first red flag. If you remember Bernie Madoff, he just died. That's what he was doing with the Ponzi scheme. Offers to share inside information and pressure to invest before you have an opportunity to investigate. These are all warning signs of fraud, and ask your investment professional for written materials and prospectuses. A prospectus is a little booklet that comes, that by law should come with every investment. So they explain to you what the ins and outs of the investment is, what they're investing in. And a lot of us are Christians, so we want to be careful also where we invest. So some of the stocks that give the highest returns are stocks that are invested in things that are not good for the environment, or they invest in alcohol and cigarettes and some things that destroy the environment. So what you want to do is always ask your investment person about socially responsible investing, SRI, socially responsible investing, and read the prospectus. If you need help, a lot of us can help you to understand what's in there. So get your prospectus and read it before you invest. It's also a good idea to write down everything your investment advisor tells you, because your notes will be valuable if you find that they were not telling you the truth and they withheld certain very important information from you. So always take copious notes when you're dealing with investment professionals. Some investments make money, others lose money. That's normal. And why you need that's normal, and why you need a diversified portfolio. You've heard the term, don't put all your eggs in one basket. And that's very true. That'll minimize your risk. It's called diversification. That concept is telling you, and that's where mutual funds are actually very helpful, because they invest in several things within the fund. So if you have losses in one area, you might have gains in the other. So one would offset the other. So it's never good to put all of your investment money in one place or one thing. Should you lose money because you were cheated, that's a problem. Sometimes it takes only one investor complaint to trigger an investigation that exposes an illegal scheme. So if you believe you have been defrauded, always file a complaint online at www.sec, again, that's the Securities and Exchange Commission.gov/complaint. So this, we have come to the end of the actual presentation. So let's now talk about some of the things that was presented here. Where am I? Oh, there I go. Yes, is everybody there?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Humans, hello. Oh, Nazir is there too. Yes, do we have any questions or concerns or comments? Or let me put the light on because I think it got dark.
If I may say so myself. So feel free to drop your questions in the chat so we could start answering them for you.
Who was that? Sister Parchment?
Yep.
I want to say, Sister Garrett,
Yes, Sister Mackenzie.
yes, thank you. You did a really good job, remarkable job. It's a lot of information in a little time, but I think it was explained clearly, and the screens help to, to support maybe being able to hold on to it. But I do have something to make you smile, as you say that financial literacy is not being taught much. Actually, in my school, it's been taught for the past, I don't know how many years, maybe 8, 9 years.
Wow.
It's part of the 7th grade curriculum through a program called Junior Achievement, and they learn about all kinds of things like the difference between debit and credit and interest and what is that and budgets and different types of savings and so on. They also have a bank that works with the school. I forgot the name of the bank. I cannot believe it. But when the parents come for the first conference, the bank is there. They talk to the parents and their children about the different savings products. They can open an account, and then once a month, the bank comes to the school, and during lunchtime, there's a table set up, and they can do their banking right there. So
Wow.
it's changing. They're realizing that we need to start teaching about this much younger, and so somebody's helping in
Yes.
education. It's
Praise
getting
the
there.
Lord. Hallelujah. We've been advocating for this for so long. I'm really, really happy. That actually did my heart really good, Carla. By the way, for those of you who don't know Carla Mackenzie, she's teacher extraordinaire. She's an excellent teacher. I think the Board of Ed usually observe her teaching in class so they could tell the other teachers who are not that great to how to do it. I might have said something I shouldn't have said, Carla, but you
And
are
she's
really
also the one who wants to retire. So.
well. I hope you have somebody who will take your place. But excellent teacher. I'm glad that the schools have been are paying attention and they're offering financial literacy at an early age, because we found out with the meltdown, the subprime meltdown we had that lasted about probably 8 years. Thank God that Barack Obama was elected president, because we were on the brink of disaster. We were on the edge of a precipice financially, and we realized that if basic financial literacy was taught early in school, some of the bad decisions that people made with, signing without reading financial documents and not, looking at the numbers and asking the questions, we believe they would have made better financial decisions had they have the basic, information very early so they could have implemented it in their lives. By the way, and this is research we have done, a lot of our people also are not taught money from home, and so many of us have to pick it up as we go, or sometimes in some areas. And I've spoken with my Spanish friends also, and they said it's kind of the similar in their community. So sometimes we also pick up very bad financial habits from parents and the people who raise us. And unless we get the right kind of information, sometimes we make some decisions based on just poor information or just bad information. So if this is being done early, Carla, I am happy. Thank you. So Sister Parchman, did you say we had a question? Someone asked me, I read something about what's the difference between how does one save and invest for students? Well, men spend on gadgets. Students actually are in a unique position. They have the benefit of time, and so the longer you invest is the more money you'll make. And Brother Mackenzie, I had sent you a couple of documents where we could show graphically two people, Anna Gutierrez and Sean Wright. Were you able to open it? So we could show how, because I don't know if I'll be able to find it now.
I did open it. Hold on a second.
So the gist of it is, until we can bring it up on screen, the gist of it is that, and I'm still answering the question about how does a student save and invest. There's this one kid, well, I'm calling her a kid, but she's grown. She's 21 years old. Anna Gutierrez, she started investing at age 22. And she invested $2,000 a year for, for 15 years, for 14 years, $2,000, and then she stopped. And she didn't invest another penny. She didn't deposit any more money towards the principal, but it grew over the years. And this is an example. It says 10%, and so the amount's going to come out because it's invested at 10%. So she invested from age 21 to age 33, and she stopped. But the money grew up until she became age 65. And at age 65, her total savings was $993,306. And she saved from 21 to 33 and she stopped. And she had almost $1 million. Now we come to the other side of the coin, Sean Wright. He saved $2,000 a year from when he was age 35 to all the way up to age 65, he saved $2,000 a year. And at age 65, the total amount he saved was $442,503, simply because he started late. The later you start is the less time you have to grow a savings or to grow an investment. So with students, they have the time. So students could invest small amounts, but as long as it stays in the investment, the time is what will grow the money. So that's why students are in a unique, they have a unique opportunity. They don't need a whole lot of money. They just have to start earlier and just be consistent and save something on a consistent basis. After a while, even if they stop, but the money is allowed to grow, it grows bigger because there's more time for it to grow. So that's your time value of money right there.
So my question is, how would I save and invest for my students? I have 2 kids and they maybe 12 and 13. How can I start an investment for them?
Okay, good question. If you want to start an investment for small children, because I did that for my kids actually. You know how we did it? When they were little, I taught them how to wrap coin. And we would wrap coins, quarters, dimes, nickels, whatever. I mean, kids don't do that today. Their parents just throw money at them. And so what we'll do once a month, and I opened a youth savings account at a credit union. And I would, once a month, I taught them how to fill out a deposit slip. They had a little bank book. There are no bank books these days. And I'll take them once a month or once every couple of months, especially after they had birthdays, because I told my friends and my relatives, don't buy toys or clothes for my kids. If you're going to give them a gift, either buy a savings bond or give them the money And so when we go to the bank, they'll bring their coins and whatever birthday money or whatever they got, and they'll deposit it. And that's how you teach children the value of savings and show them that it's easy. And when you make it early, when you do it early, it builds a habit in them. So having a savings account or having money or having investments is not foreign to them. So that's, you could start as small, but if you have like a 12 or a 13-year-old, let's say, that does babysitting and gets money, you want to at that point let the child understand. And being Seventh-day Adventist, where we are taught tithing from very early, that's a concept that many of our children already know, that you don't use all your money. There's tithing, you got to, tithe first. That's God's mandate for the benefit of the church, for upkeeping the church. And so when you introduce savings to them, let them know also the benefit of savings and why it's a good idea to save some of the money, because you may need it one day when you have an emergency. And, speak to them in language they could understand. A child at 5 may not quite grasp an emergency. So you have to say something to a 5-year-old like, you want to have a savings account. So if you see a nice toy that you want, and mommy can't afford it, or mommy doesn't have the money for it, at least you have a savings account where you can get money from there. And that's a 5-year-old. By a 12-year-old, well, Randy's not here. I could tell you about Randy, but that's between me and you. And so when Randy was probably about 12, I think, that's when sneakers were becoming outrageously expensive. And he wanted some fancy pair of sneakers. And I mean, he came and the sneaker was like, I don't know, $95. Both me and my husband almost passed out, because at that point, we just didn't see sneakers on that level. But that was all the rage, and he wanted it badly. So we said to him, well, first of all, we would never buy sneakers for $95. And secondly, you have money, you have savings, so you have to decide, do you want to use part of your savings to buy the sneaker that you say you can't live without? Or, it's a trade-off. You got to figure out, spend your money or buy a reasonably priced sneaker for $49.99. And of course, once he realized he had to use his own money, he decided against the sneakers. So based on the age of your child, you have to tie the rewards with, the risk and the rewards to them. Let them see, okay, once you realize it's your money that's going to be used, you may rethink, that thing that you believe you can't live without. So you have to speak with your children in language they could understand and scenarios that they understand and they would get. So they make the decisions in their head themselves as to whether they will spend or they'll continue to save.
There's a note in the chat that says some of us still use the savings plan and the piggy bank, and I give you 2 thumbs up for that. It still show them the way they save it in the meantime until you could get to a bank. When that thing is full, you crack it open and take it to the bank. So thumbs up to whomever put that in. Teach them at a young age.
The piggy bank is always in vogue. And that's really a nice way to start children very young on the concept of savings, not spending everything you have. So when they become adults, the emergency fund is a no-brainer. It's not something, that they're going to fuss about, and they'll teach their children also. So it starts early.
Can you explain compound interest?
Okay, so compound interest is interest on interest. So I also have some examples also. I don't know, did I send it to you, Mundo? Probably not. I didn't send this one because it was more paper. So here's how it works. Compound interest is actually the magic to growing your money. And when you deposit money and when you deposit money and you get interest, keep the money in the investment and it continues to earn interest, let's say you put in, I don't know, $500 at 3% for a year. At the end of that year, you'll have $500 plus whatever interest you earned during that 12 months, that 1 year. And then when you roll it, well, not roll over, because rollover is something different. When you reinvest that $500 plus interest, now you're getting the same interest on $500 plus what you accumulated over the past year. And so at the end of the second year, you get more than you did in the first year because the interest is actually making it, the interest is generating interest on the interest plus the principal. So it just grows exponentially each year you keep it in the investment. So compound interest is very, very important for growing your investments. In the past, what people used to do when the term passes, they'll remove the interest and use it and reinvest the principal again. That way, they don't get the real magic of compounding. If you leave it in, an investment should be looked at with a long-term view. Investment should never be something that's short-term, because when it's short-term, you don't actually see the growth too much. And that's also the magic of compounding, by letting it grow. So interest, growing on interest, growing on interest, and it literally grows like yeast in flour.
Okay. May I ask a question?
Sure.
I'm not sure if you covered it, but if you have an investment property, incidentally, I was talking to a friend recently, and he has a few properties, rental properties, and he said that you should never keep the equity. He said what he does, he would, if it has a certain amount of equity, he would take it out and put it in the bank, because he said that the uncertainty that we live in, you know, the interest goes up and then you have equity, and then if anything happens, the bubble bursts, then you lose all the equity. Is a compound question though. Should you?
Yeah, you have another part to it?
Another part is that you said that you should, if you have an investment property, you should never pay it off. Because you talk about depreciation, you do all kind of stuff. But you know, could you just
I will.
a little bit?
I will, but he sounds like he has a complicated scheme going there. But anyway, the first part, he said you should never leave equity in the property. There's no reason, unless you have a compelling reason to remove the equity from the property, then I'll say use it. Because a lot of times we buy property so we can utilize the equity to do other things like other investments. So
Correct.
If he's using the equity for other investments, that's not a bad idea, as long as he's not spreading himself too thin. Because I also know people who bought a property and within a few short years, they take out whatever equity was there and they bought another property or they got into another investment. And that investment either didn't go well or it ended up that they had like a new payment. For instance, one of my cousins, well, my husband's cousin, he did that with some properties a few years ago. He bought the first one, then he took equity out, he bought a second one. And when he bought that second one, as soon as it made equity, he took that out and he bought a third property. And when there was a downturn in the real estate business, in the real estate market, and the value was no longer, that the value had diminished in all these properties, he was still stuck with those high monthly payments. And on top of that, because they were investment properties and he had tenants, and let's start talking about tenants. There was sometimes he had like vacancies for long periods of time. And so he had spread himself so thin financially because the values went down. There was no rental income. The rental income that he counted on wasn't coming in. And he then had to realize that he had to dip in his own personal savings to pay those payments on those properties. So eventually he lost 2 of those properties because he couldn't sustain it. So if people want the equity to invest in other things, they can, but they have to be careful they don't spread themselves too thin. Because if they do, and they don't have any equity in the first property, they can't go back to that first property to get more money because they took out the equity that was there. So it all depends on the plan and why they're taking out the equity. And so the second part, what was the second part of your question?
You never pay off your the investment property.
Well, there's nothing to say that you have to pay it off. I mean, if you using the investment property to get, tax deductions or tax benefits,
Right.
or to, because a lot of self-employed people do this. They lowball their income and they inflate their liabilities. So if that's what he's doing, by holding on to those big debts, so he could, somehow show that he's not underwater. There's a term for it. Anyway, that the income he's getting from the property is so much less than the expenses that he has on the property. Then he ends up, walking away with a lot of income and not paying much in income tax. But you know what's going to happen? If he wants to, when he has to show a bigger income for some other thing, maybe to get, something for a child, or he wants to buy a primary home or whatever, and the bank says, well, that $700,000 house that you want, you have to have income of $130,000 a year to actually be able to afford that $700 house. But if he had a history of lowballing his income, so he could hide behind the expenses for the rental property, then he doesn't have income to help him qualify for a $700,000 house. So he's kind of like shot himself in the foot. So sometimes people see it from one angle, but it comes back to bite you in the end. It's always best to just learn what you need to do. It's good to have rental property. A lot of people want rental income, but you also have to you must expect to declare your income as it is, and don't try to hide it behind huge expenses or huge losses on the back end, because what you're doing is diminishing your actual income.
Very, very well. I don't know if anybody has any question, but could you? I know you didn't touch that tonight. Could you touch a little on that? That's politics, but moratorium, where they suspend paying your rent and stuff like this, and people take advantage of the situation where they don't pay, and they end up not having the money when they're required to pay the landlord.
I'm kind of losing you out, Alcy.
Okay, maybe that's the place where I am.
Your last couple of sentences I didn't hear.
Okay, like the government talk about moratorium.
Yeah.
Where they you don't have to pay the rent.
Yeah. Well,
okay.
It's suspended for a few months until the economy recover, until people start having regular jobs again. It's suspended.
Yes, I know, but how would you advise our audience in a case like this? Because even though it's suspended, all the money still has to be paid.
Yes.
So
I'm actually glad you brought that up, because there's a lot of misinformation around that. The moratorium or the suspension of mortgage payments and rental payments,
yes.
That was a stopgap measure. It's temporary because the cities and states did not want to have a homeless situation happening, because so many people lost their jobs or they were downsized or furloughed or whatever. And even if they were getting unemployment money, in many cases, unemployment money is just a small fraction of their actual income. So suspending the evictions and the foreclosures was just a way for the government to make the banks also participate in helping the city or the state to recover in a humane way, and not having hundreds of thousands of people that don't have homes. So what that is though, is a suspension. It's not an exemption. So what folks have to know is that when this is lifted by the government, and actually the Coronavirus Relief Act, the CARES Act, also offers some protections. But once the government lifts that suspension, you still owe the money from whenever you stop paying it, whether it was June 2020 or March or April or whatever, up until whenever it's lifted. Now, what the city or the state would ask the landlords and the banks to do is to either add the arrears and get a number. Let's say they didn't pay from June last year to December 2020. That's 6 months. And let's say the monthly payment was $2,000. So $2,000 times 6, right? So that's the amount that they technically still owing the landlord or the bank. So what the landlord can do, which is what I know the government is going to recommend, is to either make a payment arrangement that the landlord or that the tenant or the homeowner can make small payments towards that arrears, either to add it to the regular payment if they could make it, or in the case of a house, put it on the back end of the mortgage. And so when they sell the house, that amount is going to be absorbed into the sale. In the place of rent, most likely they're going to take some years to pay it off, but they're going to get the time necessary to pay it off based on their family income. So they still owe it, but they'll get some grace to pay it back. So I don't want people to walk away thinking, oh, well, I don't owe this money. The government said I didn't have to pay, so the money would go poof. No, the money is still owed.
And can I just chip in a little bit on that? I know that. Can y'all hear me? I want to make sure. I know that.
You're not coming in clear. You have somewhat of an echo. I don't know. You're not coming in clear. Hello?
Better? Is this any better?
It's slightly better, yeah.
Okay, so this is just a little word of caution. I know that we have hit hard times, yes, and some of us are not able to pay our rent, and we know that we have this little relief where you can hold off until XYZ amount of time. I just want to say that let us be kind to one another, because most of us are renting from another minority person. And so because we know that we have that wait period, please do not take advantage of it so that they end up in a negative situation. If you can't pay your rent, go ahead and pay. Have the conversation, not because it's on hold, you're going to just totally hold off and not pay, because it's like a domino effect that it does affect them too, especially in the minority community. If you can't pay your rent, please pay your rent. And don't leave them hanging in the balance. Just make that extra effort. That's all I'm saying with regards to that.
Yeah, great advice. And also too, for the folks who think that it's a free lunch, and they like what the treasurer just said, if you have the ability, pay it, whether or not the moratorium is in place. And so if you know that you could pay it, but you're taking advantage of the situation, you're not getting away with anything, because you still owe. You still owe. All the months you didn't pay, you still owe. So it's just a matter of eventually, you have to pay the piper. You may have to be on a payment arrangement for, a number of months or years, but you still got to pay it.
Okay. So can I just go back to the compound interest question? I know you answered it, but I kind of like I like simplified stuff and make comedy out of everything. So say you have $500 invested and you get $25 interest on it. The compounding of it is now, instead of the next time around, you get an interest on $500, you get interest on $525.
Yes,
And then when you
absolutely.
leave it there, you get another $25 and you don't take it out. So now you went from $500 to $550 that you get in interest on. So every time you get the interest and you don't take it out, the amount of money you're starting over for the next period increased by the amount of interest that you have in there. So just it's like a snowball effect. You just keep adding and adding and adding. And so
as a matter of fact,
becomes more.
As a matter of fact, it's even more fabulous than that, because when you reinvest the 525, at the end of the second year, you're not just making another $25, but you're making 25 plus whatever interest you made on that $25. So at the end of that second year, you actually might have $530 or $532. And if you reinvest that again at the end of the third year, you may actually have now maybe $540 or $550, depending on the interest. So compounded is really, really magic.
Very well said.
And so who's heard of the rule of 72? Elder Alcide, you ever heard of the rule of 72?
No, ma'am, I've never heard about it.
That's how long it takes for your money to double. So here it is. What you have to do is divide whatever interest your investment is invested at. You take that interest, let's say it's 10%, right? You divide it by 72, and the answer will give you 7.2 years. So you'll know that whatever that investment is that you invested at 10%, after 7.2 years, you'll double the money. So that's just a quick and dirty way to kind of just, figure out how much you'll make over a certain period of time if you invest at a certain rate. That's the rule of 72.
Okay.
So
I don't see any more questions in the chat, but I'll just throw out a little freebie for the young people or the young at heart. Say that again. Is there a question?
Yeah, can I throw one out also?
Oh, sure. I'll go after you.
No, you go ahead.
Okay, so here's the thing. I know credit cards are awesome. They serve a purpose, right? However, young people, especially the ones that are just entering college, parents, I want you to tell your young people, now you get a credit card because all those banks and credit card companies are going to be there. They're going to give you a credit card with $200 on it. I don't know if the amount went up, but they're going to give you a little bit of money in it, and you're going to get so excited. You have your very own credit card. Do not go crazy and spend with that credit card. You have to be responsible. If you do not have the money to pay for the item, then you cannot afford it. So if you know that you have your little part-time job, right? And at the end of the week, you're going to get, I don't know, $200. I don't know numbers. You're going to get $200 at the end of the week. That's how much money you're going to have. And today you want to buy, I guess you want to buy extra lunch. You want to spend $20 on lunch. Okay. At the end of the week, you're getting $200. So you know you will have that $20 to pay back. Put the $20 aside, and as soon as the bill comes, you pay for it. If you cannot afford that $20 or $30, whatever the item is, if you cannot afford it, if you're not going to have money at the end of the week to pay for it, then do not get it. Because that's how you get yourself in a hole. That's how you start in having these ginormous debts that you take forever and ever and ever to get out of. So please, if you cannot afford to pay for it, do not get it. It means you don't have the money for it.
Excellent advice. And also to Carla, because the the teachers, the people who are responsible for opening the minds of these young people, if they don't get it at home, at least the schools are beginning to recognize that they have certain responsibilities towards students by actually imparting those kind of basic information at a very early age. And so my hope is, well, more than hope now that I hear that, you know, schools are proactive at the lower levels. The crop of young people that are becoming adults, they'll be wiser and excuse me, be victim to what, you know, a lot of us have been victim of because we were just ignorant about stuff. So the thing with the credit is a slippery slope, but credit is one of the most powerful factors in your financial life. Once you learn how to manage credit effectively, you can pretty much use anybody's money and not really pay interest. But you may not like the rules, but if you follow the rules, credit could actually be one of your best friends. Because to build anything, many times, especially in this culture, to build anything, many times it starts with debt. I mean, even the family home. Home ownership is one of the most effective ways to build wealth and to sustain wealth. So if you are able to manage credit in such a way that a lender will trust you with 300, 400, 500, sometimes up to almost $1 million to buy primary residences, it means that you are well on your way to building a financial empire. And so learning how to manage credit and be responsible, because credit is where you have to be responsible with other people's money. When people trust you to use their money and they give you some terms and conditions, pay it back at this rate, at this time, in this amount, those are simple steps. If you could just do what they ask because it's their money, you get rewarded for it. So knowing how to manage credit is actually one of the most powerful things you can do for your wealth, for building your financial portfolio. And there's a reason why by law, people under 18 cannot have credit cards, because many times people under 18 don't work. If you don't have a source of income, you should never have a credit card. And if you do have a source of income, you should not use more than 30% of your monthly income or your bi-monthly income to pay debts. If you're using more than 30% of it to pay debts, it says you already have too much debt. So just learn how to manage debt. It's one of the most powerful things that you can have in your arsenal of financial tricks. It's the credit. Thank you, Madam Treasurer.
And so let me just throw one more, and then you could go, Edmundo. So Garrett is a, she loves to tell you about having that debt, but let me tell you, managing that debt is key. So if you have that credit card and you want to use it to build your credit, only buy what you can afford. And so I'm going to say it again, you can only afford to pay $20 or $30, that's the only amount of money you have, then do not charge more than $30. When the bill comes, you pay it in full. That is using other people's money, but for 30 days or 29 days, whatever your billing cycle is, you use other people's money and you pay it off at the end. You are building your credit, yes, but you're not owing anybody. You're not under a debt. And as believers, we don't want to be, what do you call it, Denise? You a slave to the lender. The borrower is a slave to the lender.
Yes.
You don't want to be a slave. We've been working too long to be free. No more slavery. So please, people, young at heart, in between, do not charge more than you can afford to pay when the bill comes. And again, hey, get that emergency savings going, so you won't have to dip into the credit card. You could just use the money that you have saved.
Also, to one of these days, when we do use and misuse of credit, we'll talk about the grace period. The grace period is also a magical concept to use other people's money and not pay for it. But Edmundo, you had a question.
So, just to add one thing to what Janet was saying too, and with our young folks, actually not even just our young folks, but you know, as
Folks
we're
in general.
as, as we're heading into what's called even like the cashless society, you can see a lot of individuals with cards, and especially like our youth, you know, you're just swiping and swiping that card.
Yeah.
And the thing is as you're swiping that card, oh, let me cover it before you guys.
Yes, please. Thank you.
I forgot Esteb is on the line.
Oh, cover it, sir.
But as we have, you know, as you're swiping and swiping, it's very important if you can call your institution and ask them for that app tracker that lets you know as you're swiping, it lets you know how much funds you have left, and it pings right into your and right into your phone. Because one of the most embarrassing things is for you to get to the register, you swipe, and then for the register or the person to tell you that you don't have enough. It's very, you know, that's another reason why also, you know, I still carry cash too, because one thing is an example too is if I go to a store, even let's say if it's McDonald's or wherever, Doogie's, wherever you guys go and eat or whatever, I know automatically that $20 is what I have, and that's my minimum right there. But when you're swiping with the card, you're just swiping and you don't even know what you have, and you're just going, and you just getting close to probably your limit or so. So like Janet said, really just try to even, you know, go to your institution, call them, and they will, you know, help you out with an app tracker that will give you that ping and let you know, if you know, if you're with your girlfriend or whatever, you don't want to be embarrassed and you can't get her or whatever.
Yeah, pretty interesting. I have a comment.
So one last thing also, Sister Gary, because this question here, you kind of mentioned it earlier, and this was something that the youth had at their focus thing that I did. You mentioned earlier that a woman should not buy a $500 bag. Now, if you have the money or so, why not get it? And I'm saying this now, that's not me or so, but I'm just saying this now. What is your?
Well, I said she doesn't need a $500 bag. I didn't say she can't buy it. I'm saying to differentiate between needs and want. No one, Edmundo, need a $500 bag. No one.
Because, you know, well, you know, just if you could tap onto that about instant gratification, because my sister, she works at Saks Fifth Avenue, and in the sneaker shoe department, she always tells me about the and even at the focus group thing, when they talked about it, they were talking about, the youth were talking about the trappings of social media and that thirst to get, and she was telling me about how many young individuals are buying these Dior's and Balenciaga sneakers that are not $95, Sister Gary, the son, but these are about $1,700 sneakers.
Yes, sir.
They're buying, and they are buying it.
Well, here's the thing. So this is why the concept need versus want is so powerful when you're trying to establish a budget, or you're trying to, you know, build some financial goals into your future. Because unless you identify what's a need, the things that you actually have to have for survival, like food and water and shelter and clothing and love, none of it says bag. None of it says bag. You have your needs, but then you have your wants. And if you want to build financial goals and have a chance to actually realize them, you have to identify your needs versus your wants, because at some point you have to either prioritize the financial goal, and while prioritizing the financial goal, you must deal with the want part of you that wants something but doesn't need it.
So here comes that B word, Garrett. The B word pops right in there. The budget. And then if you don't, the budget is the B word. And a lot of people don't like it, but no matter what you do, it has to come into focus. You have to have a plan. You have to have a plan. You cannot live in Ma's house forever. And as a matter of fact, if you're living in the house and you're working, you need to be putting $1 towards the rent. You need to put $1 towards the gas. You need to put $1 towards the food. You should not be living rent free, even though they're not charging you. If you're going to be, if you have no expenses and there are no expectations of you, parents, you must have expectations of your children. If there are no expectations, then
Man,
they could blow their $500 that they make for a whole month that they save up on some
that's correct.
frivolous stuff. You're walking on it, and I see kids blowing on their hand, wiping off the shoes on the ground and blowing. Like, get a grip. The shoes is on the ground. You should not have paid that amount of money for it. You don't even have a computer. How you have these ridiculous amount of stuff that's gonna go in 2 shakes of a duck's tail? It's no good. We
Well,
need to
actually,
have
Um, could I?
goals.
Mhm.
We need to teach them financial responsibility. And if you all are listening, where are you going to be in 2 years? Where are you going to be in 5 years? What would you like your life to be? How are you going to sustain yourself? You cannot spend all that you make today because you don't know what is going to happen tomorrow. And thus, you need to have enough money saved away, screwed away for when times come that you don't have the funds coming in. That's it.
and so that's where the leaders of the church come in. That's why we're doing these workshops to just bring basic information so you are armed. We are arming you with the tools that you need so you could decide to change whatever situation you have now. And it's not good for young people not to have financial goals. It's not good for young people not to have a vision for the future. And the treasurer said it, so succinctly, because a lot of our children, we enable them in the bad behaviors, and then we sit around and talk about them. So and we don't talk about them good when we are the ones that actually enable the behaviors. So what we want to do also as parents, look at ourselves and see what part did we have in this child. And not all of them. Some kids are just, whatever you do with them, they're going to go their own way. They just kind of one of those. Every family have one of those. Some family has two. But the parents also must take control of the household. That's why you are parents. And so if you have certain standards for your house, and unfortunately, some spouses usually not of one accord there, and the children always know. The children always know what the gaps are in those relationships, and they exploit that. But having said that, we have to also give the children the tools that they need so they could see, okay, I want to go here, and this is how I do it. I want this thing, and this is the best way to get it. So that's what we as the church community feel that we need to offer. So at least parents have tools they can teach to the children, or like the teenagers, when they're able to take those tools themselves, then we offer it to them, and they have us if they need to make a call. They have Brother Mackenzie. They could call him up and say, listen, and Mundo, I don't know if you heard this yet, but a lot of them are crazy about Bitcoin, and that's really a rabbit hole, Bitcoin. So if they come up with anything about Bitcoins, please call me in an emergency, because they're spending all kinds of money on Bitcoin and they have no idea what it is. So again, Madam Treasurer, thanks for that. But Elder, I'll see you have a question.
I just have not really a question, but a summary.
Yeah.
And my boys can tell you about it. You simplify it. My rule of thumb is I give them an acronym, SSE.
Uh-oh.
So they remember that. They say SSE, save some, spend some, eat some.
Oh, okay. SSE. Maybe we
SSE.
should. Maybe we
Just tell
should.
person SSE, save some, spend some, eat some.
I'm going to have to work that into one of my workshops.
So
Yeah.
that is, you make them aware
Yes.
that you have to save. And like Sister Madam Treasurer was saying, that money doesn't come from the backyard tree. You work hard.
Sir.
And money is not given, money is earned.
Yes, sir.
So we have to be present in them realizing that you have to do this. You have to be present in their lives, realizing you have to do it in order for you to have a good future.
Absolutely. Actually, one of the things that I went did with one of my children, when he graduated, well, I only have one son, so if I say he, y'all know I'm talking about Randy. And so when he graduated, he had a little side hustle he was doing, selling high-end sneakers to kids that are too rich for their own good, all the way in Japan. They would be buying those Jordans for $200, $300, $400, $500. So they had a very lucrative little business, and it grew, and he needed some funds to expand. And he came to me and he asked me if I would consider giving, lending him $5,000 to expand the business. And so I sat him down. I said, well, show me if the business is growing, and what's your vision, and what's your plan? What's your financial plan to grow the business so you could pay me back my money and still have a little bit for yourself? So he showed me how many sneakers they were doing on a weekly basis, at what amount, how much they were taking in, and all of that stuff. So I said, okay, sounds you have a good business model here. It's got potential. And I said, I'm going to invest in you. You are my son, and I'll invest in you, but we're going to do this in a business-like manner. So I'm going to be the bank, and you are going to be the borrower. So I drew up a document, and I'm going to lend you X amount. He had told me he was going to pay me, instead of monthly payments, he was going to pay me back that $5,000 with interest. I think we did 18 months or maybe 2 years. And so we signed it, and I gave him a copy. I kept the document. And at the end of 2 years, he gave me back my money with interest. And so when I tell this story at my credit classes, they usually are a little appalled and go, you draw documents with your own son? I said, I was teaching him something. That's how you handle money in life. If you go to a bank, and you ask the bank for money, you're gonna have to fill out a loan application. The bank gonna have to study your current financials and your income, including your debts. So they're gonna go look at your credit report to decide if they're gonna give you a loan. So when we as parents are lending money to our children, let's do it in a business-like manner, so they understand when they go out there in the world, they have some obligations to fulfill before a bank would actually give them money. Because the bank is not your mother and it's not your father. So when we teach our children the steps of borrowing and saving and investment and whatever from home, when they go out there, they're going to be successful in their financial life.
Sister Garrett?
Yes.
One last thing, family, that I must say this, and I'll take my seat back. As parents, or even if you have, your children's friends, it's very important sometimes if we could take our children or even our children's friends outside of their mental zip code. My son, sometimes they have to get out of the neighborhood or from where they are and go somewhere and see how somebody else is living in order for them to appreciate and to see that what they have, that they don't really need it.
Absolutely.
My son went to, I'm not going to say which one, but
well, you have two sons. I can't even guess.
Well,
but me, I have one son. If I say my son, everybody knows it's Randy.
Well, he went to forgot what country it was, and he saw how the children, they were living out there, and it was very, impoverished neighborhood that where he was walking through, and the kids, they were looking at his sneakers. He had some Jordan sneakers, and they wanted it and everything. They were walking bare feet. They didn't really have anything. So right before my son left, he took off his Jordan sneakers and he gave it to one of the kids. And then when he came back, he said, sometimes we have to get out from where we are. And sometimes we don't really know how good we have it until we see what somebody else is going through.
Hot dog, at Mundo and Carla, y'all did good. Y'all raised them children well. All right.
Awesome.
So
Awesome.
one last thing, Dave Ramsey said that when the nobility of your future goal is big enough, you can live through the momentary problems of today.
Sure
And I
can.
like that.
Sure can.
Philosopher, Dave Ramsey.
Yeah,
All right,
love him.
but it's
Okay.
true.
So I think we ran getting close to the end before Pastor Martin come and tell us we need to wrap up. So here we go, young people. Listen, we need to not be, and I said it before, we need to change the trajectory that we've been on, that your folks been on, that people of color been on. You need to have a goal and a purpose. We need to not continuously be living from one paycheck to another. We have to do something better, and you cannot wait for somebody else to do it for you. You have to want it. You have to have some goals and some objectives and some stuff that you're working towards. And so, hey, how about some financial freedom? If you look at statistics, and you all know have computers and fancy phones, go look up and see how much money passed through the minority neighborhoods, the Black community. I must say Black and brown. I don't like the Black and brown thing, but the Black people. See how much money comes through their neighborhood. See how much money they earn, and it goes right back out. Not one penny stays back with them. Now, if you are able to hold on to some of your money, you can build a future for yourself. Would you like to own your own home? Would you like to own your own business? Would you like to hire other people to help you to become whatever it is that your ultimate goal is? Start now. Don't spend everything that comes in frivolously. Have a goal and start working towards it. Sooner or later, things are going to happen, but start now. Have a goal. Maybe tonight, tomorrow, you could start thinking about it, where you want to be, and start saving towards it. Get a budget, start adding up your pennies and your dimes and see where your money is going. And then, hey, I'll be old by then, but I'll be proud, because y'all don't know, I am so proud of all you kids, that the young people in fellowship. When you're successful, I am on cloud nine. When you're not so successful and you're sad, I'm sad too. You may not know it, but I do. I celebrate all your achievements. And when it's not so good, I feel the pain. Hey, let me be a part of the success. I know you can. I believe in all of you. Start today. Have a plan and work towards it. God bless you.
So Sister Treasurer, someone sent a question. I don't know if it's tongue in cheek or if it's a serious question. And the question is, can't we depend on the church to bail us out after making bad decisions?
Listen, here, I'm not going to touch that too good, but here's what I say. I'm a firm believer, as a member of the faith community, that if we all put in our pennies together, so you put God first, that little thing, put God first, he's the center of everything. I don't believe any of us should ever go without the basic stuff. That is my personal opinion. So if all of us, 20 of us, 50 of us are here, we have a little bit of income, we put God first, we turn our tithe, we give a generous offering, and we make sure everything is coming in. Nobody should go hungry. Nobody should have problem with their housing, because we all take care of each other. Now, if you're not putting into the pot, you may be afraid to come in and ask for stuff. But let us do that. Put God first in all that we do. We all contribute together. And then in the end, hey, happiness is what
So like I said, I don't know if that question was tongue in cheek or if it's serious, but I'm gonna just I don't want to belabor this, because like the treasurer reminds me, time is fast spent. But the church is as financially strong as the members are financially strong. And this is another reason why we do all we do, and we offer all this information, and we help to focus folks on, the best direction for managing personal finance. The church could be extremely healthy and wealthy, but for the church to be very healthy and wealthy and be able to help out from time to time when people come to some hard places, it means that the church members are the ones that would have to be financially strong, so they could donate money into what's called the poor fund or the benevolent fund. So when somebody's in real trouble, many times not all financial troubles come because people have bad habits or because they did bad things. Sometimes financial troubles come through no fault of the person, right? Like if there's like I had a flood here in 2012. Half my house was destroyed. Nobody expected this, right? Lucky for me, I always have my ducks in a row. At least I try, so I had homeowners insurance and flood insurance. But there are some people who didn't. And so this is something you didn't foresee. But for the church to be able to help you, the church also have to be financially strong. And you are the one that have to make the church financially strong by returning a generous offering. Not the tithe. The tithe go to the conference to pay pastors and to do the big things. Like when there are disasters, like this disaster in St. Vincent right now, the church was one of the first organizations that were on the ground with food and shelter and tents and water and whatever. That would be ADRA, our Adventist Emergency people. So the generous offering that you give over and above the tithe, this is what stays in the local church. And this is what helps the local people when they have unexpected financial hardships. So I'm just putting that out there. The church is as financially healthy as its people are financially healthy and generous. Because if you're financially healthy, but you're stingy, the church doesn't actually benefit. By extension, other people don't benefit if you're stingy. So all of this is to help you to be financially strong. And when you are financially strong, turn around and put something in for other people who might come after you that may need the help. So we all in this together, like your president, Slippy Joe, have been telling us. We all in this together. So that's my answer to that question. I don't know if it was a serious question, but it was worth, taking a stab at it. And
Pastor Martin,
Pastor, are you there? Madam Treasurer, if Pastor's not there, then you have to pray us out. But let me give some final thoughts. We appreciate everyone who attended and who fellowshiped with us in this manner. Church is not always, it's not always, wrong word. Church is not only reading your Bible and, helping in the soup kitchen or, the basic things. Church is also learning how to handle the resources that God have given to us. We read all the time that the cattle on 1,000 hills belong to God, and we are heirs to the promise. So if he's our father and he owns everything and we are heirs, it means that we have a great responsibility. And so everything he gives us, we have to manage well, like the scripture reading that Brother Mackenzie did in the beginning. God is all about investing the things that he's given to us. He wants us to be wise in our investments. And this is why we do this work. And we're hoping to continue to do this throughout the year. We have some other topics we are exploring. Home ownership was one of the topics that people wanted to see happening. Managing student loans, financing education, small business issues. There are some people who want to start small businesses. So we have some other topics that we would like to explore, and we hope to see you. We hope when we let you know that we are offering some of these things, that you join us, you put your voices and you bring your opinions or your fears or your anxieties or whatever it is. Let's all, come together, because we are stronger together than apart. So that's why we're doing this. So we thank you for this evening. And we have another one tomorrow, because why? April is Financial Literacy Month. So the workshop tomorrow is on insurance. That's another area where there are places that people can access funds in an emergency. And some of us have too much insurance. So we're going to learn what to buy, when to buy, in what quantity, what the benefits are, and things like that. So tomorrow is going to be about insurance. So we hope to see you on this Zoom platform again tomorrow. So Madam Treasurer, could you pray us out?
I can and I will, but I see Elder Alcide still on the line, and since he's a part of the team, my team, I would just ask if he's still there and unmuted, if you could just give us the closing prayer.
She's deputizing you, Elder.
That's fine. Let me, actually I was driving. Let me just pull over.
Oh.
Okay. That's, bow your heads with me, everyone, as I pray. Lord, you have served us a delicious meal and we have partaked of it. We pray that as we are enriched, that it will manifest itself in our daily lives, in our families, in the church. We thank you for all the instruction that was given. And Lord, this instruction is not meant to go into our ears and live, but it has to be implemented in our lives. So give us that ability whereby we can implement what we have learned tonight. And so we can have a better family, a better church. We pray for those who find it fit to bring this ministry to us so that we can be good managers of all the wealth you have given to us. Thank you for blessing us. Thank you for the inheritance you have given us. Thanks for those who have participated, and we anticipate tomorrow night, God's willing, to be there to hear another portion of the meeting. Bless us and keep us faithful to the end. And we, each and every one of us, we pray, is my prayer in Jesus' wonderful name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Elder. Drive safely. And we have a special guest tomorrow for this segment on insurance. So we hope to see you. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Everyone.
Good night. Good night.
Thanks.
God's blessings on you.
Thanks, Sister G.
It's done.